many great estates. Anglemore was a house that was loved, a house that had sheltered the same family for more than 4 centuries. Generations of Hargreave's children, all born on the estate, no other location would be tolerated even today, had carved their initials in the wooden banister on the back stairs leading to the nursery. The family was rooted here, passionate about the land, deeply connected to their tenants, and confident beyond doubt that there was no better place to serve as one's anchor. Most of the family married in the chapel, and all of them were buried on the grounds in a towering mausoleum built in the late 17th century by a Hargreaves gentleman who, horrified by the Great Plague, determined he must make every effort to see his mortal remains well placed. In a letter written during the height of the epidemic, his wife, angry with him for spending what she viewed as too much time hunting, had threatened him with plague pits. Today, despite tens of thousands of acres of land, a sizable house, and enough outbuildings to hold several villages, the estate felt nothing but crowded. Crowded by my visiting mother, the Countess Catherine Bromley, whose inflexible views on child-rearing, wholly at odds with my own, had not contributed to a state one would describe as domestic bliss. She had come to Anglemore months ago, following the birth of our twins, but hadn't stayed long, informing us she would return once the London season had finished, and after she'd hosted at least 2 shooting parties. Only then, she said, would she have the presence of mind and clarity of concentration to ensure that children were being looked after properly. Now we were bearing the full brunt of this mission. Her visit had weeks ago taken on the feeling of an endless tour through one of Dante's less pleasant circles of hell. The evening had started badly, with her complaining bitterly about each course at dinner. She had found fault with the game dish in particular, objecting to pheasant stuffed with foie gras for reasons wholly indecipherable to me. Afterward, we had retired to the library, where our second house guest, Simon Lancaster, Earl Flight, offered his apologies and went to bed after having been interrogated by her on the subject of politics. One could hardly blame the poor man. Unhappy with his views, she had hounded him, all but following him to his room when he at last excused himself. My husband, Colin Hargreaves, buried himself in James's The Portrait of a Lady, ignoring with deft skill my mother's litany of questions about his views on how our boys ought to be raised. She had, it seemed, either grown fatigued of political discussion or realized she would be incapable of besting him on the subject. Eventually forced to accept that she was quite unable to penetrate his wall, she turned her attention to reprimanding a housemaid for not having tended adequately to the fire, a fire I was not convinced we needed on such a fine night. "There are infants in the house," my mother said. "I shall not allow Henry or Richard to catch a chill." "Or Tom, Mother," I said. "You mustn't forget Tom." It was the presence of this third child, our ward, that caused my mother considerable agitation. They are all 2 floors and 1 wing removed from us, not to mention in the care of an exceptionally capable nanny and her staff. I shouldn't worry if I were you. Furthermore, it is an unusually warm evening. They are more likely to be overheated than cold. To demonstrate the point, I crossed the room and flung open all 6 sets of French doors overlooking the neatly manicured terrace, its beds full of bright dahlias, chrysanthemums, and late asters. Autumn was at its best, a perfect September night. The sun had disappeared while we were in the dining room, leaving only a few streaks of gold in the inky sky. I pulled something to read down from the shelf without glancing at the title, and installed myself in an overstuffed chair as far from the fireplace as possible. Nothing, I vowed silently, would distract me from this book. Should it have become necessary, honouring this promise would have proved exceedingly difficult. The volume I had so carelessly chosen, a treatise on advanced mathematical theorems, had no hope of holding my attention for long, but it didn't need to. No sooner had I soldiered through the introduction